Hello, and welcome to this series of presentations from the Grade CERQual group. In this session, I'll be talking about how to assess the methodological limitations component of Grade CERQual. I'm Heather Muntikos from the Norwegian Institute of Public Health, and I'm presenting on behalf of the Grade CERQual project group. The learning objectives for this session are to understand the role of the methodological limitations component in a Grade CERQual assessment, and to be able to apply this component to a finding from a qualitative evidence synthesis. The Grade CERQual approach has been developed by the Grade Working Group to support the use of findings from qualitative evidence syntheses in decision-making. Grade CERQual includes 4 components for assessing how much confidence to place in qualitative evidence syntheses. These components are methodological limitations, coherence, adequacy, and relevance. This lecture focuses on the methodological limitations component. Assessing methodological limitations. What do we mean by methodological limitations in the context of Grade CERQual? We mean the extent to which there are problems in the design or conduct of the primary studies supporting a review finding. When might we have concerns about methodological limitations? We are less confident that a review finding reflects the phenomenon of interest when the primary studies underlying a review finding are shown to have problems in the way they were designed or conducted. How do we assess whether there are problems in the way a study has been designed or conducted? A critical appraisal tool for qualitative studies should be used to make this assessment. Typically, the tools include appraisals of how the participants and settings were selected, how data was collected and analyzed, or researcher reflexivity, among other criteria. There is currently no widespread agreement about the best critical appraisal tool. However, we currently have a research agenda in place within the Grade CERQual project group to examine existing tools and appraisal criteria. When selecting a critical appraisal tool, you should consider the following. Are you familiar with the tool and how to apply it? Does the tool include elements that overlap with other components of Grade CERQual? If so, you may need to adapt it or choose another tool. Does the tool focus on the appropriateness of the methods used rather than whether the methods were reported? The critical appraisal tool should be applied to each of the included studies. When applying the tool, remember that you will be using your assessment in the Grade CERQual assessment of methodological limitations. Therefore, it is important to say more than just yes, no, or unclear. It is helpful to describe your assessment for each criterion in detail. For example, the authors have not described how they selected the participants they included in the study. This is important for later making the methodological limitations assessment so that you have all the information available in one spot. Where you identify methodological limitations, consider, is this limitation likely to have had a serious impact on the review finding? Some limitations may be more serious than others. For instance, the use of some methods of data collection may be particularly inappropriate for some review findings, but not for other review findings. If there are some contributing studies for which you have serious concerns, what is the relative contribution of these studies to the review finding? If these studies are key studies, this is of more concern than if the studies contribute only in small ways to the review finding. After you have applied a critical appraisal tool to each of the included studies, you will begin to consider the methodological limitations of the body of evidence for each individual review finding. You will look at the methodological limitations identified in all of the studies contributing data to that review finding in order to make an assessment of the methodological limitations component. You should begin your assessment with the assumption that there are no concerns regarding methodological limitations for the studies contributing to each review finding. If you identify concerns, there should be categorized as no or very minor concerns regarding methodological limitations, minor concerns, moderate concerns, or serious concerns regarding methodological limitations. You should always provide a justification for your assessment. For example, that you have moderate concerns as the studies contributing to the finding did not appear to use appropriate sampling or analysis methods. The assessment of the methodological limitations component will contribute to the overall assessment of confidence for the review finding. This will be discussed in another presentation. I'd like to acknowledge the contributions of the rest of the Grade CERQual coordinating team listed on this slide. To learn more about Grade CERQual and for further reading, visit our website, www.cerqual.org, join the mailing list via the webpage or email below, and join the project group via the webpage or email below. Thank you very much for listening today. These slides are licensed under a Creative Commons attribution.